Welcome back to the Star Wars News Net YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Bradshaw. This is episode 2 of the Who Is in Star Wars series. Please hit that like and subscribe button because we're going to be bringing you so much more content in the weeks to come. But let's get going. We're talking about none other than the hero of Hetzal herself, Avar Kriss. Now, how did she get that title? Well, we're going to talk about it here in a moment, but it's important to talk about first how she perceives the Force. Now, if you recall in the last episode, we mentioned how Elzar Man perceives the Force in a way of like waves crashing together in an ocean, and every Jedi perceives it a little bit differently. Okay, now Avar, she hears the melody of the Force. You see there in this image from the character encyclopedia that the song of the Force will lift us all, she says, and she's able to use that song that she hears and spread it to other Jedi and unite them in a way that brings them together to perform feats they could never accomplish on their own. Now, when the great disaster strikes in the light of the Jedi, first novel we ever see for the High Republic, and first place that Avar Kriss ever appears in Star Wars. The Great Disaster strikes, and she saves the Hetzal people by uniting the Jedi to move a giant object out of space, saving millions of lives. Now, we don't see her very much in The Rising Storm or in The Fallen Star, but the Light of the Jedi, she is front and center. Now, that's not to say she isn't playing a pivotal role in the High Republic in the other two novels. She's still there, just a little bit in the background, because we see her so much in the comic run by Kevin Scott. Here is an image of her from near the end of that comic run. The shadow over her face, I think, tells everything. She has this stern look in her eyes because from the Jedi she was at the very beginning of the High Republic Phase 1 is a little bit different from who she is at the end of Phase 1, because the shroud, that darkness that the Nile has kind of placed over the Jedi is kind of coming to a head. And we see that here as Avar is about to kill in cold blood Lorna D, one of the Tempest runners of the Nile, these space pirates, and she's about to strike her down. And it reminded me a little bit, I mentioned Anakin last time, but it reminded me a little bit of when Anakin killed Dooku in cold blood in the Revenge of the Sith. But fortunately, Avar doesn't go through with it, mostly because Keeve Trennis, who we see in the background there, stops her. Now, when Starlight Beacon falls, which is, for those of you who do not know, kind of the beacon of hope, the beacon of light, and the outer rim from the Republic to those who are not quite yet in the Republic. And the Nile take it down and basically annex and sanction off a portion of space for themselves. They call it the Occlusion Zone, and Avar stays in the Occlusion Zone in order to try to help the people under the oppressive rule of the Nile. Here is an image from very beginning in the Occlusion Zone. You see Avar right here, the lightsaber in hand, the bright regal robes of the High Republic Jedi. She is ready for action. But look at the difference here in the Shadows of Starlight to what she looks like now. Look, the robes have been replaced. It's a very dark time, and her outfit reflects that. And she learns that being a Jedi to these people is only going to cause turmoil, as the Nile completely destroyed an entire village just because there was a rumor that she was around. And here's some of the concept art from Phase 3. Look at the left. We see kind of some darker robes, but look on the right, Avar Kriss from Phase 3, dark robes, dark cloak, a shroud over her face. She doesn't quite have that same uplifting feel that you see over on the left with Phase 1's concept art. And I think this is 100% clearly intentional. She even took off her little circlet over her forehead. She's a different person right now, and has to be because of the threat that the Jedi pose to anyone in the Occlusion Zone, but also because of just the shroud of darkness that the Nile had brought on the galaxy. So we see in The Eye of Darkness, the novel by George Mann, the first novel in Phase 3 of the High Republic, the last phase of the series, that Avar is trapped in the Occlusion Zone, but manages to wrestle her way free. Sorry, spoilers. To find her star-crossed lover, Elzar Mann. Now, her and Elzar definitely are very passionate of one another, and this is just a look from the cover of Temptation of the Force, the penultimate novel in the High Republic era. And The two of them are going to be teaming up, and I can't wait to see what happens. Obviously, they've tried to push down their feelings for one another in order to maintain the Jedi code and everything that the Jedi stand for in terms of attachments. But based on the synopsis and what we've heard so far, I have a feeling that that's going to be pushed back a little bit. And something that I'm really excited for is to see why the Jedi become so enamored with no romance, no attachment in the prequel era. And I'm wondering if something that happens between Avar and Elzar is going to be a direct result of what happens in the future. So I cannot wait to see what happens. Avar Kriss, one of my favorite Jedi in the High Republic era. I hope you enjoyed this really quick snapshot of who she is, where she comes from, and how she gets from point A to point B as we round out the High Republic over the next year. Please like and subscribe to the channel one more time. We're going to be giving you a little Who Is snapshot of different High Republic and other characters in Star Wars as this series continues. Until next time, for Light and Life, this is Tyler and Star Wars News.